Welcome to PJ's Quick Tips. So this is what I like to call a clean start. So this is so that you don't have to worry about threading in your tails when you get done. So there's a clean start and a clean stop. So the first one of these is the clean start. When your serger forms stitches, it is forming the stitches on these little guys right here, which are considered the stitch fingers. So if I stitch, can you see how the stitches are forming on those stitch fingers? If you try to put your fabric in, when the stitches are still on the stitch finger, it's going to cave in the side of your fabric. So it's going to be very difficult to start clean and stop clean, because you have to, this is where you end up tailing on and tailing off. But this is one way to get around that. So, and this is the same whether your foot's on or off. It's just that if your foot's off, it's easier to see that. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to release the stitches off the stitch finger. So if I gently hold my tail and I wiggle my flywheel, now the stitches are no longer on the stitch finger. So when you put your fabric in, you can start cleanly. Okay. In this particular instance, I'm going to put my foot back on, but for a clean start, what you're going to do is you're releasing the stitches off the stitch finger, and then you're going to pull the tails to the front. Put your fabric in underneath the tails and move your fabric up to where the needles are. And then you're going to hold the tail in front and you're going to sew over the tail. So this is a clean start. So you're basically sewing your seam and catching your tail all at the same time. When you've gone a few inches, you can just move this to the right and it'll trim that off. When you get down to the end and you want to do a clean stop, stitch down to the end, lift up your needles, raise your presser foot, gently pull your needle threads just a little bit to give them a little bit of slack. You can gently pull straight back, but now you can flip this. You can move this forward to take up that slack. This time you're going to lock your knife. You don't want to move it too far forward because you don't want to cave in the end down here. Put your foot down, and then you're just going to sew back this direction, which is going to tie off that end nicely here, so you don't have any tails. And then when you want to stop, you're going to lift your foot again, gently release your stitches again, lift up your needles. You can gently pivot off, and you're just wanting to make sure that you're missing this part. And then gently stitch off. And then you can trim close. So there's your clean start. There's your clean stop. Starting and stopping in the middle of something. Say you were sewing in the round, like this. Say this was a pant leg. Once again, to start, you're just going to gently release the stitches off the stitch finger. Pull your tails, wiggle your flywheel, your stitches will release. And I usually start stitching just a little bit past the seam, because when you get done, you're going to go over your starting part by about 1 inch. So now I've started nice and cleanly. The side, let me stitch a little farther so you can see. So the side isn't caved in, it's all nice and flat. So I'm going to continue sewing all the way around here. When you get back to here, I just hold my tail. As soon as my tail trims, I'm going to lock my knife, and then I'm going to stitch back over the starting point by about 1 inch. And I'm using the nicks on, or the little notches on my foot, to align with my needles here. So I've gone past about 1 inch. I'm going to lift up my presser foot, raise my needles to the highest position, gently release my stitches, pivot that out of the way, stitch off, and trim. So there is, in the round, a clean stop and start. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.